Hi friends, and welcome to another installment of Conversations with the Reluctant Missiologist. We are talking about how to grab onto unshakable hope. How do we have hope in the midst of troubled times? Well, hope isn't something like wishing at a wishing well or just wanting it to be hopeful. But hope is understanding the reality around us and hoping anyway, because our hope is in Jesus. As we talked about in our first video, our hope is not shaken because it is founded in the person of Jesus, in his sufferings, in his afflictions. And it's the mercy and comfort of God that washes over us through what Jesus suffered and also through what we have faced in our own afflictions. And we have 2,000 years of Christian history plus the stories of the Bible to see that God's people have faced troubles time and time again. And so even though today we think we are out of control or times are uncertain or we just don't know what's going on, we can remember that even 5 days ago we were out of control, or 5 weeks ago, or 5 months ago, or even 5 years ago. It's not something new that we are out of control, but we are all the more aware of it now. We are in these times of uncertainty that really make us aware how uncertain life is. And when we look around, and it's interesting, as I've been mentioning, I am blind, and doing a visual medium on YouTube might be ironic, might be funny, but sometimes it's not about what we see with our physical eyes, but seeing, asking, learning, understanding what's happening around us. Then, as we know what's going on around us, we can cry out to God and say, God, we need you, and we need hope in you. And so the hope that Paul is talking about as he writes to the Corinthians is the same hope that Isaiah was writing about with the suffering servant. And he begins the whole passage on the suffering servant in Isaiah 40, saying, comfort again. He says, comfort those people. And so God wants to provide comfort for us in turbulent times and when the economy is going way down and then up and then way down again and then up again and way down and we don't know what's going on. And just a moment ago I was hearing reports of thousands and tens of thousands of restaurant workers being laid off all over the place. These are difficult times where people are having hours reduced or totally being let go of their job. These are turbulent times. And I think about turbulent times. I think about John Wesley and a story he wrote about in his journal as he was traveling from England. John Wesley was traveling as a young man to be a missionary in the Americas. This was 1730, 32, somewhere in there. Before America was America, he was traveling there to preach the gospel. He knew what he wanted to know. He was part of the Holy Club, him and Charles Wesley and a few of their friends, and they wanted to follow God with all of their heart. And here he is on a boat going across the Atlantic. And also on that boat was a group of Moravians, another group of missionaries from Germany. And they were traveling across the Atlantic also. And while they're traveling on this boat, they hit some turbulent times themselves, a massive storm, and the waves are crashing on the boat, over the boat. The wind is whipping and howling. And John Wesley is in his room, curled up in a ball, just holding on for dear life. In fact, he writes in his journal that he thinks he's going to die any moment. And yet he looks across at the women and men, the Moravians, these Germans, and they have such tranquility, such peace on their faces. And he is shocked, and he writes in his journal, how can they have such peace when the boat is barely surviving these waves and this storm and being tossed to and fro? And John Wesley's thinking, he's gonna die, he's got nothing left. This is it. And he's desperate to live because he doesn't know if he dies what will happen. Even though he wants to preach Jesus, he doesn't know what's going to happen if he dies. And he's looking at what he calls the courage of these women. Now, that's something to chew on, courage of these women. But he does make it through the storm, and the boat makes it all the way to the other side of the Atlantic. And when he gets off, he talks to the pastor of these Moravians, August Spangenberger, and he asks this guy, August Spangenberger, how did you guys have such peace in the midst of stormy waves? How did you have such peace and courage? And Pastor August Bangenberner says to John Wesley, do you know Jesus? And John Wesley says, yes, I know Jesus, but I'm asking you about how did you have peace in these turbulent waves? And August Bangenberner says to him, do you know Jesus? And he points John Wesley to just know Jesus. And when you know Jesus, you will have peace in the midst of turbulent times. And Wesley was yet a couple years in what is now the state of Georgia, and then back to England again, before he encountered another Moravian, Peter, I want to say Peter Bowler, I might be forgetting his name, but Peter, this other Moravian missionary now in England, and he's asking him, I want to have faith, like real faith in Jesus, and I don't know how to have faith. And this guy, Peter, says to him, preach faith until you get faith. And over a period of weeks and crying out to God, John Wesley was touched by the grace of God, and he writes in his journal about how he was washed by the grace of God, and he finally had the intimacy that he was desperate for, and the peace and the faith in Jesus, not just the faith about Jesus. And so when we think about turbulent times and the economy going up and down, I'm reminded of a book that was just given to me today by Craig Bartholomew, a visiting scholar here at the school where I'm attending. A book he gave me as he's getting ready to return to the UK. Harvey Cox, scholar Harvey Cox, he writes this book titled The Market as God. Sometimes we think the market, the economy, is God, and now the market is falling apart. The world seems to be falling apart all around us. But if we can take the advice of August Bangenberner, do you know Jesus? Do you know Jesus? Yes, 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 but what about, do you know Jesus? Yes, but what about the economy? Do you know Jesus? Yes, what about the hospitals? Do you know Jesus? And so I'll leave you with that question. And if you have questions for me, feel free to post them on the YouTube page, or we can get in touch another way. So maybe we'll figure that out. But I'll be back again. And in the meantime, keep grabbing onto hope, onto unshakable hope. Until then, we'll talk again. Until then, we'll talk again.